Authorized to fire at will.
Hey, good morning. An uncommon, should we say, a rather uncommon Saturday morning stream for TC here at the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment channel. If you are a first-time watcher because of the links that you saw, where I've shared this out and tagged the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office here in Minnesota and the Wilmer City Police from Wilmer, Minnesota, which is the county seat of Kandiyohi County. Try saying that. County seat of Kandiyohi County. Try saying that 3 times fast. And just go ahead. We'll wait. But if you're a first-time watcher, subscribe. If you good morning, Jug. But you haven't subscribed yet, do so. If you have subscribed, make sure you are hitting the bell notifications down there. And if you are interested and you'd like to see more content and you'd like for me to be able to continue to do what I'm doing, join the memberships. We here at the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast, we have a strong community, and I would welcome you guys to join it. We have 4 different levels. From an entry level, we call them the channel members act localists, and I'm looking for a show producer, someone to have show production credits. That is my comes with my top level of membership. So if you're interested and you like what I do here, you don't have to agree with 100% of what I say. You don't have to agree with every single position I take. I have people on the left that like me and hate me. I have people on the right that like me and hate me. I have people in the middle that don't know what to make of me. And that's the way I like it. I'm exactly where I want to be. I want people from both perspectives of this strange paradigm that we have here in the U.S. to be able to like me. And if I can convince one person out there from either position to think in a different way or to look at things from a different perspective than they've ever looked at them before, then great. So if you're here from the left and you are an all cops are bastards type person who believes that radically defunding law enforcement is the only answer to the problem that we have, I encourage you to stick around because you're probably not going to agree with everything that I would say if you watch all of my stuff. I'm for radical reform, not defunding. I believe that law enforcement is a necessary evil in our society today, and the only way to protect us from the evil that is the necessary evil of law enforcement is to radically change how they are trained. If you are a back the blue at all cost, hardcore law and order for everyone, especially if it's your favorite laws type person, we're going to work to change your mind too. Because the people that you back in law enforcement are not who you think they are. And if you watch my stream from last night about corruption and quiet complacency, Jugs, if you could go get my stream link from last night and put that in the chat, that would be awesome. Jugalassis is one of my moderators, so he gets tasked with those things because none of my other moderators are here right now. So, yeah, I am looking for, like I said, someone to pick up show producer credits in my memberships in the join area. So go down there to the join area, and while you're at it, share this out. Like it, come back and comment at it or comment on it. I don't, guys, I'm not used to doing this at 11:15 in the morning. I'm normally working my ass off right now. I should be mowing, but I've been working on this story since last night. And so we're going to get going here, folks. Army with Harmony. Hey, thanks. I don't think I've seen you before, but thanks for joining the chat. And like I said, share this out. So yesterday afternoon, an announcement was made by the Kandiyohi. Well, actually, maybe a couple of days ago now, was made by the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office. Here we are. Yeah, this was made 2 days ago at 10:02 p.m. It's a news release from Sheriff Eric.tollefson for immediate release, July 18th, 2024, referencing motor vehicle rollover. On July 18th of 2024, at 6:21 p.m., the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office received a report of a one vehicle rollover on County Road 4 just south of 1st Avenue East in Genesee Township. Deputies learned that a Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office squad operated by a on-duty Kandiyohi County Sheriff was traveling southbound on County Road 4 when it left the road and overturned. EMS personnel extricated the deputy, who was then transported by Lifelink Air to the St. Cloud Hospital. The deputy suffered non-life-threatening injuries as in stable condition. The crash is being investigated by the Minnesota State Patrol. Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office was assisted by the Atwater Fire Department, Atwater Ambulance, Kandiyohi County Rescue Squad, CentraCare Ambulance, Lifelink Air Ambulance, and the Minnesota State Patrol. Sheriff Eric.tollefson. So I said, okay, we have another case of a law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota having an accident. Right. Doesn't seem like a big deal, right? Like what's the big TC? Why do we care? What's so important about a law enforcement officer having an accident? People have accidents every day. Well, the problem is as I've demonstrated with my channel, law enforcement in the state of Minnesota thinks they can drive however they want. And statistically speaking, single car accidents do not happen when someone is driving with attention to the road. Normally, a single car accidents, especially single car accidents, happen under a couple of more common conditions: driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or driving inattentively, or driving distracted. That's a fact. That's demonstrably true. You don't have a person who's driving under the best of conditions, especially in the summer in Minnesota, on what appear to be dry roads, and then all of a sudden veer off the road because road conditions were such that it was unavoidable. Now, we don't know if there was an animal involved, like swerving to miss a deer, dog, cat, raccoon, whatever the case might be. But normally these situations happen, once again, normative, reasonable, deductive thinking will let you know that these accidents happen either from inattentive, distracted driving on the part of the vehicle operator, or through drunk driving or intoxicated driving of some form. We don't know this to be a fact. We don't know that that's what happened in this case, but we do know it was a single car accident. And we do know now who the deputy was that had the accident. I'm going to show you the initial report from the Minnesota State Patrol. Oh, we're going to get there, folks. Trust me. So here we see the initial report from the Minnesota State Patrol. This is was being investigated, or is being investigated by them. The description, the location we've already read. Ford Explorer was south on County Road 4 when it entered the southbound ditch at 1st Avenue East. The Ford Explorer vaulted 1st Avenue East and rolled before coming to a rest in a field southwest of the intersection. Road condition dry. One vehicle involved, 2018 Ford Explorer. Driver, 1, Christopher Todd Flatten, Atwater, Minnesota, age 39. Injury type, non-life-threatening, healthcare facility, St. Cloud Hospital. Seatbelt, known. Helmet, not applicable. Alcohol involved, not known. So we have the name of the driver right here, Christopher Todd Flatten. Now, we do know that Christopher Todd Flatten is the deputy, right? We know that. This is the correlation right here. It's the date and the time are identical. So we have Christopher Todd Flatten working for the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office. Now, once again, guys, if you're watching this Figure this out. It's very important that we talk about this, because I believe we have a case of a dirty deputy doing wrong and getting away with it, or a dirty cop. First, let's say it that way. Dirty cop. What on earth? I'm getting a weird message. I don't know. Okay. So we're going to take a look now at a Facebook post from the Willmar, Minnesota Police Department. This is from April 29th of 2024. It's from Wilmer Police Department. Wilmer PD would like to wish Chris Flatten well as he moves from our agency to the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office. Chris has been an officer with Wilmer PD since 2008. Gosh, 2008 to 2024? I mean, that's 16 years. What on earth could possibly have caused a 16-year veteran of a police department in Minnesota to all of a sudden change jobs? I mean, at 16 years in, this guy should be bucking for a leadership position, right? 16 years in, especially with everything that he's done. Chris has held positions as a firearms instructor, a SWAT officer, and a canine handler with Canine Axel from 2015 to 2023, when Axel retired. Thank you for your service to our community, Chris. We'll miss you at Wilmer PD, but glad you'll still be serving in our area. Now, folks, what could possibly be the cause for a 16-year veteran who was a firearms instructor, a SWAT officer, a canine handler, who should be bucking for leadership positions? What would cause an officer that apparently, according to all the comments, everybody likes? And this goes to my video last night about, the nice guys in law enforcement to a degree. But what would cause an officer of 16 years experience with one agency to all of a sudden leave? Now, we can only speculate because we don't know, but we might have some indicators. We're going to take a look at those indicators. Here we see a release on June 25th of 2024 from the ACLU. The ACLU of Minnesota filed a lawsuit on Friday, June 21st, on behalf of Derek Gilbert, who was unlawfully arrested by Willmar police in a classic case of walking while black. Mr. Gilbert is a 39-year-old black man who lives in Kandiyohi County. On the morning of June 22nd, 2022, so 2 years ago, Gilbert was walking to work wearing a sleeveless red hoodie with the hood up. Wilmer police officer Christopher Flatten was driving his police car when he saw Gilbert. Despite not being able to see Gilbert's face, Flatten assumed he was a different black man named Sammy Price. He checked to see if Mr. Price had a warrant out for his arrest, but Price is 7 years younger than Gilbert, 4 inches shorter, and at least 90 pounds heavier. Are we tracking? You guys following this? I'm not making this stuff up. Gilbert also has significantly darker skin than Price, and Flatten reported that he had multiple prior interactions with Price and thus knew what he looked like. When Flatten saw Gilbert again a short time later, this time walking towards him, the officer decided to arrest Gilbert for Sammy Price's warrant despite their clear physical differences. Flatten parked his squad car without the lights on, so no dash cam video was created, and approached Gilbert from behind, calling him Sammy. Additionally, though, he was required to turn on his body-worn camera. Flatten forgot to do so. Gilbert turned and told Flatten that he was not Sammy. Flatten decided to harass Gilbert anyway. Despite knowing that Gilbert was not Price, Flatten continued following him and calling him Sammy. He even called for backup. A Kandiyohi Sheriff's deputy arrived, and a minute later, two men arrived in a gray pickup truck. They were not wearing any uniforms, and the truck was identifiable as a law enforcement vehicle. The truck jumped the sidewalk within 5 seconds. Flatten and the other three men jumped Gilbert and pulled him in different directions, nearly dropping him on his face on the sidewalk. Now, folks, I'm sure that there's part of you going, well, what's the big deal? Like false reports are made all the time. And I will be doing a live stream on Monday night for TC and Friends Monday Night Musings, where I will specifically be talking about a false accusation made against me. I'm not saying that false accusations don't happen, but I want you to listen to the level of detail in this, and the fact that ACLU is picking this up. And you could say what you want about the ACLU. I know that people constantly say things like, well, the ACLU is biased, but I'll tell you, ACLU might have a bent towards the left to some degree. They certainly are bent against law enforcement, but they tend to not take cases unless there's something about the case that's, how should we say, tangible. So we're going to continue reading this release from ACLU. And by the way, the way that Mr. Gilbert's description of how he's being treated takes place, we have to take his word for it, folks. And this is what I want people to understand. You don't get to be a cop and treat people a particular way, violate your agency's policies and procedures when it comes to recording through body cam, dash cam, having your lights on, and all of this. You don't admit as an officer that you know that this is not the guy because you've had plenty of interactions with the suspect that you're looking for before, the Sammy Price, and that you're familiar with him, and then treat this person who's clearly not the person that you're looking for in such a way and get away with it. This is the problem. So a Kandiyohi Sheriff's deputy arrived, and a minute later, two men arrived in a gray pickup truck. This sounds like a jump out squad, doesn't it? Doesn't this sound like a jump out squad? This is absolutely, the southern version or the northern version of the Minnesota or like the Chicago and Atlanta jump out crews. I just don't know what other way to look at it. They were not wearing any uniforms, and the truck was not identifiable as a law enforcement vehicle. The truck jumped the sidewalk, and within 5 seconds, Flatten and the other three men jumped Gilbert and pulled him in different directions, nearly dropping him on his face on the sidewalk. At no time did Gilbert deny any lawful order from Flatten or any other law enforcement official. During the attack, officers cut Gilbert's backpack off, threatened to tase him, and handcuffed him. The handcuffs were put on improperly, causing Gilbert pain. Because Gilbert was not Price, Officer Flatten decided to arrest him for obstruction of the legal process. Instead, specifically, Flatten reported that Gilbert had clenched fist. Under these facts, obstructing the legal process is a misdemeanor, for which arrest is unlawful. Yes and no. You can be arrested on a misdemeanor. You can be. Doesn't happen often, but when it does happen on a misdemeanor, there's either very compelling reasons why, or the cop is just being vindictive. It's retaliatory. And yet, Gilbert was put under arrest and transported to Kandiyohi jail, where he was booked for obstructing the legal process. All charges against Gilbert would later be dismissed, but due to Flatten's allegations, Gilbert had to face criminal proceedings, including several court appearances for which he had to take time off work. It wasn't until 6 months after Flatten harassed and unlawfully arrested Gilbert that prosecutors dismissed the charges against him. Gilbert filed a complaint against Flatten and the city of Wilmer with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights on June 15, 2023. In response, defendants admitted that they updated their impartial policing policy, but claimed that the facts are just an unfortunate reality of a black man living in Wilmer, callously stating that Gilbert was in the right place at the right time, that is, in the city of Wilmer where Sammy resides. Under their theory, and this is ACLU's commentary, any black man between the ages of 22 and 38, 5'8" to 6'4" in height, weighing 220, 366 pounds, walking to the city of Wilmer would also be in the right place at the right time. The lawsuit claims Flatten and the city of Wilmer violated Gilbert's constitutional right to be free from unreasonable search or unreasonable seizure, and they discriminated against Gilbert in violation of the Minnesota Constitution and the Minnesota Human Rights Act. In addition to other legal claims, it seeks money damages in excess of $50,000 in payment for attorney's fees and costs. Now, folks, we can say what we want, right? We could talk about this all day long. And we can defend the cops and we can say that, Gilbert is just money hungry. But Gilbert did not put himself in this position. And I'm sick and freaking tired of hearing from people that just comply. Just comply. Derek Gilbert was not Sammy Price. Derek Gilbert knew he was not Sammy Price. Derek Gilbert had no reason to be stopped walking to work by Flatten. Now, law enforcement in the United States has this track record of having officers do these types of dirty things. This is corruption, folks. And I had somebody reach out to me and tell me, and I have a lot of respect for this person. In the brief amount of time that I met him, they've proven that I've met them. They've proven to be the kind of person who is reliable and reasonable. And they're willing to call out bad actors when they see them. And this person reached out to me and said, man, I hope the person's okay. He's a genuinely nice guy. Does this sound like a genuinely nice guy? I mean, honestly, is this really a nice guy? Does Christopher Flatten sound like a genuinely nice guy? And the person that I'm, or this thumbnail that I'm using is a picture of him, and I guess I want to say that he doesn't look like a jerk, right? He's not I mean, it's a picture, so what do we know about a person by a picture? It's contrary to the true, or the truism that, pictures paint a 1,000 words, but we don't know that he's a nice guy because of a nice little quaint little picture. We like, how do we know that? Like, do we like? Here's the thumbnail, folks. How do we know that this is a nice guy? Just from that smile and the fact that he's wearing that really nice, uniform and he's all done up for his picture. We don't know. Sure he is. I'm sure that he's probably off duty. He's probably really nice to the people around him. But I want to know why 16 years into his career with Wilmer PD, I want to know why he would just up and leave. I want to know what would cause him to just, fly the coop. And why all of a sudden does he have a job with the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office? I don't know if you guys can see this. Let's see if we can bring this up a little bit. Yeah, at least he's not wearing a blue line flag. That's, yeah. You're not wrong. But here's the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office or seal, right? I want you guys to look at the seal. It's Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office. Here I am, send me. It's a reference to Isaiah 6:8 from It's Christian scripture, Judeo-Christian scriptures. Here I am, send me Isaiah 6:8 is not a case of what they're making out to be. It's kind of like when law enforcement or even military individuals put up no greater, gift has a man than to lay down his life for his friends. That reference is not about cops serving you, and it's also not about military members dying for one another. And in that case, I have refused, even when I was still like making, I'm corny. We were making pallet signs for people, and I had some law enforcement people that wanted no greater gift has a man put on their sign, and I said I will not put that on a sign for you because it's just a misuse of scripture, and I would not put Isaiah 6:8 on a sign for a cop either, because it has nothing to do with law enforcement. It has nothing to do with, enforcing laws. Folks, why would Christopher Flatten depart his time with this agency this year? And if you look at, and I'm not going to bring it back up, but I'm just going to remind everybody of the date. The date was April 29th. So about 2 months before the lawsuit was filed. Right? So approximately 2 months before the lawsuit was filed against the Wilmer PD and against Flatten, he left and went to work for the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office. Now, we know there was a complaint filed. We know that there had to have been some sort of investigation because there's record of it. I read the record of it. There was an admittance that it was a bad situation, and the charges were dropped against Gilbert. The charges were dropped. That tells you that the prosecuting attorney for Kandiyohi County acknowledges that there was wrongdoing. That whether they ever come out and say we're dropping the charges because Flatten and the others did wrong, that's what they're saying. This was an unlawful arrest. It was a wrong arrest. They drug Gilbert through the mud for 6 months, dropped the charges, and then after that, could there have been an internal investigation and Flatten was told, look, Flatten or whatever, was told, look, here's your opportunity. And I haven't had time to dig into this anymore, and I think we're going to be doing some digging into this. Here's your opportunity to leave and still have your post certification, police officer standards training here in Minnesota. And it's pretty much across the country now. You have the opportunity now to leave, keep your career intact, face no discipline, and then he goes to work for the agency linked to the abuse of Gilbert. And when I say for an agency linked to the abuse of Gilbert, Kandiyohi Sheriff's deputies responded to the same event. They backed up Flatten. There's no other way to look at this, folks. This was a shuffling. Get him out of our department. He's a liability. Let him keep his job. Let him keep his post certification and let him move on. And he stayed in the community. And the Wilmer PD is thankful for that. Why on earth? Like, this may not be big news to a lot of you, but this should be massive news to everyone. This should upset anybody. This should upset the back the blue at all costs crowd. This is why people in the United States are turning against law enforcement. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is why people are turning against law enforcement in the U.S. because bad actors like Christopher Flatten are treating people like dirt. This is a first, guys. You'll get a kick out of this. Since we started the stream, I've lost 2 subscribers. So that's okay. Like, what the hell? Like, what is wrong with people? It this is where this is where the blindness comes in. It's just absolutely true. This is where blindness comes in. Instead of taking the time to look into these issues, we throw out there, I back the blue, or all cops are bastards. And the more we see things like this, and the more the back the blue at all costs crowd back cops when they do bad things and do their level best to obfuscate and push it off into the distance so that no one really can get any answers to these questions and figure out what the problems actually are and what's actually happening. The more that kind of garbage happens, the worse it gets for all of us. It pushes the people who are on the left side of the political spectrum, and I hate that division anyway. We should be Americans. We should be we the people, right? We should be we the people. We should be together on these issues. We should be together on accountability for anybody in the public sector. We should be together for accountability for politicians, no matter what letters behind their name. We should be together for accountability for teachers in the government-run indoctrination centers that we call public schools. We should be together for accountability for the janitors in the government buildings, for the mayors, for the city council members, for the county board commissioners, for county directors, for your members of the House of Representatives and the Senate at the state level and at the federal level, and for the presidents of the United States. We should be behind one another, standing arm in arm, linked, holding these people accountable. We should all be in on this. We should all be demanding answers to these questions. We should all be demanding that, especially the people who have the power and the weight and the force of the state behind them, who can show up at your house, burst through your door, take you down as you're walking down the street, who could pull you over and pull you out of your car and point a gun at you and throw you on your face and put torture cuffs on you. We should, every single one of us, should be on board with holding these sons of bitches accountable. And what do we get instead? We get rallies for them. We get people claiming, oh, he's just doing his job. He's just got to do his job. You tell me, on the day that Mr. Gilbert was walking to work, that it was the job of Christopher Flatten and the Kandiyohi Sheriff's deputy who backed him up and the other 2 unidentified law enforcement officers, when they pulled up in an unmarked vehicle, not in police clothing, and they beat the crap out of Mr. Gilbert. That's their job? That's their job. That's what you hire these people to do? That's what you, as a wage slave in the United States, pay your taxes for, is for armed thugs with the full force and the weight of the state, backing them up, protecting them from any accountability. You tell me that's what you pay for? That's what you back? All of you small government and government accountability conservatives with R's behind your name who want to shrink government, that's what you want your tax dollars going for? I hope that Mr. Gilbert takes them to court, and when this does go to court, that they take this to a jury, and that a jury costs are rules in favor of Mr. Gilbert, but it's not $50,000. I hope it's $50 million. I hope that a jury goes above and beyond and makes Wilmer and Officer Flatten liable. I hope that somewhere they can strip Flatten of his qualified immunity so that he loses his house and his cars, and that his family and anybody else related to him who live and thrive in his circle. I hope that they suffer what Mr. Gilbert suffered, because no one talks about what Mr. Gilbert's family, if he has family, I don't know, and we don't have a right to know. But if he has family and he has kids and he had to miss work, that's money out of his pocket. And for what? Because an arrogant cop knew he wasn't Sammy Price. Because an arrogant cop decided he was going to arrest him for obstructing the legal process when he didn't have an obligation to comply with the legal process in the first place. Oh, and people want to talk about Minnesota nice and small town Minnesota, and they want to talk about Mayberry in their own communities and whatever state they live in, and that happens in big cities, and that only happens in metropolitan areas like Minneapolis or New York or Chicago or LA. I mean, that's a Rodney King kind of thing. Bull hockey. This happens in every town, in every county, in every state, in the entire Republic of the United States, because there are no consequences for cops in the same way that there are consequences for your normal, everyday member of the public walking down the street that would do something like this. If you jumped out on someone and said, look, I recognize him and I know that this guy looks exactly like the guy that I saw robbing that place the other day, and you beat him down and you threw flex cuffs on him, zip ties, because you needed to keep him there until law enforcement showed up, you would go to jail. There wouldn't be 6 months of this guy fighting, of your victim having to fight it in court. Cops would show up and they would throw torture cuffs on you and take you to jail, whether you were right or wrong. They would take you to jail, and rightly so. Because you don't get to beat somebody up. You don't get to put torture cuffs on somebody just because they didn't do what you told them to do. I don't care if Mr. Gilbert has a criminal history. If he did, that would have come out. If he did, it wouldn't have been 6 months of him fighting this to get out of the charges. No, instead, he fights for 6 months, and Christopher Flatten, 2 months before the case is filed for civil litigation, gets a new damn job in an agency with the county where this took place. You try that and see what happens. You try that and see if you get to keep your job where you work in the public or in the private sector. Hey, boss, got to let you know I'm going to have to miss work here for a few days because I'm being incarcerated for beating the crap out of a guy that I thought looked like he might be a criminal that I kind of thought I knew. Your boss is going to be like, hey, sorry, that's unexcused absences. You don't get to keep your job. You're going to have to go somewhere else and look. Not Christopher Flatten. He gets to work for 2 years after he assaults Derek Gilbert, and then transfers to a new place in the same career field where he committed his crime with no charges. So you could tell me that Christopher Flatten is a nice guy, and maybe he has been nice to you. You could tell me that Christopher Flatten has never done anything bad to you. Even in a time where you weren't in your best place. as one of the comments on the page, on their Facebook page said. You could tell me that, but this Christopher Flatten's little actions here that we just talked about, those aren't the first time he's done something like that. And I think we should all be demanding to find out exactly how many times this has happened. What, especially if you live in Minnesota, especially if you live in Kandiyohi County, especially if you live in Willmar. You should be demanding answers. And if you live in Kandiyohi County, you should be demanding a full revelation, full accountability for what caused this accident. Was he doing what Trooper Shane Roper did here back on May 18th and driving in an irresponsible way? And what did I tell you about Trooper Shane Roper before the news broke through official media? I told you that Trooper Shane Roper had numerous accidents that he had been dealt with before he killed Olivia Flores on May 18th. I told you these things. Before the cops, before the state patrol told you, before the Rochester Police Department told you, before the Olmsted County Attorney's Office told you, I told you these things. I told people he was responsible because I was talking to people. I was getting their stories and their accounts of what happened. I knew what had happened, and I told you all basically 24 hours before the media caught wind of it. So you tell me that we don't have a right to start looking at people like Christopher Flatten, like the sheriff of Kandiyohi County, like the chief of police of Willmar, Minnesota, and demanding answers as Americans, as we the people. We want answers. We want full transparency, and we want it now. Why wasn't he charged? Why wasn't Christopher Flatten charged for assault and false imprisonment? Why? Why wasn't he charged? Are you going to fight him on qualified immunity? Are you going to back him up on qualified immunity? Willmar, Minnesota Police Department. Why, Sheriff of Kandiyohi County? Why would you, Sheriff Tollefson? Why would you hire this guy into your agency? Why? Why would you allow him to come into your agency knowing what you know? You know. There's no way, Sheriff Tollefson, that you didn't know. There's no way you didn't know. There's no way you did not know about this. I know how the law enforcement community talks. But yet you gave him a job anyway. And I hope he cost your agency a lot of money too. Not because I want him to victimize somebody else, but because I hope that you have to pay a penalty for hiring a dirty cop. So, guys, I'm going to be following up on this story and doing what I can. I'm going to be asking for some assistance from people to help me figure out how to get the data on this. And we'll be going from there. We're not going to let this one go either. Just like I keep telling people, we need to stay on top of the Olmsted County Attorney's Office and the prosecution of Trooper Shane Roper, and make it very clear that we're not going to let him offer a cushy plea deal that lets Trooper Roper get away with murder with a slap on the wrist. We're going to, let's follow up. Let's make sure that Christopher Flatten pays somehow, not in a physical way, but in a fiduciary way, through the loss of his career for what he did to Mr. Gilbert. Let's make sure that if his driving caused this accident because he was negligent or was speeding for no reason, let's make sure that he never works in law enforcement again. And I mean that. That's what needs to start happening to these guys. The contact information for both the agencies are in the description of this video, and I would really appreciate it if you guys would help me make this go round. Christopher Flatten might be nice to you, but he assaulted and beat up an innocent man and drug him through the legal process for nothing more than being mad at him for not being the bad guy that he was looking for. Mr. Gilbert is innocent, and Christopher Flatten abused him and then got a new job where he could go on and abuse other people. And I would stand toe-to-toe with Christopher Flatten and Sheriff Tollefson, and I would say this to their faces. They're cowards, and they're covering up to protect the blue at all cost. So, my friends, well, you know what? If you haven't yet, subscribe. If you have subscribed, hit the bell icon to get notifications. And I'm just telling you, help me keep this show going. Pick a level of support. And if you pick the top level of support, you will get credits in every video as a show producer. Thank you to my channel members that are here. Really appreciate it. Jugs and HFred and anybody else that might be watching. Make sure this goes out. Let's kick this out into social media and shed some light on Christopher Flatten of the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office, formerly of the Wilmer, Minnesota Police Department. He has no right to be comfortable. He has every right in the world to be worried about the next news story or the next independent media outlet, such as myself, shedding light on this. People should be talking to him about this every time they see him. I want the nurses to hear this story and learn about him. I want anybody he has interactions with after this to start asking him hard questions every time they see him. On every traffic stop, on every call for service, everybody should be asking him these questions when they see him. Because he's not a nice guy. He's a dirty cop that got a different job after he beat up and assaulted an innocent man. And the fact that they dropped the charges proves that everyone involved knows that. So until next time, my friends, fight for your liberty. It is yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. Love you guys. Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-30. Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.